Welcome to Freestyle Friday when we come back. Well, it's been a minute since me and my brother have got together. I think it's been at least a month. Been about a month, but hey, we're back again. I'm back with that man from Detroit, Apologist in Detroit. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up, man?
So I was minding my own business, and we waiting for folks to hop in. But I was minding my own business today. I was doing good. I've been doing good. After you wonderful people have y'all been counseling me and telling me to stay away from these people who would cause me to choose violence. But I was minding my own business today, right? And you sent me something. You sent me something in my in my Facebook Messenger, uh, and it was posted on a Christian's page. And would you like for me to give the background? Would you like to give a background?
Oh, you can go ahead and get a background, and then I'll jump
Okay.
in because I
Okay.
want to make sure. I want to make sure I don't burn no bridges because I got this comes from a Facebook friend and some artists,
Okay.
Christian hip hop artists that I respect and appreciate their music, and I interact with them on Facebook. So I don't want them to feel like I'm like going behind their back and stabbing them. This isn't anything like that. This is just more of a hey, we disagree, and they big boys. They talk about that on their page. They not cupcakes. So
Yeah.
I'm confident they'll be they can respect our critique of this video that they might agree of.
Exactly. So you sent me something in my Facebook message. I'm at work chilling, waiting to help somebody, which is what I get paid to do at Goodwill. Uh, but I'm minding my own business. You sent me a post by Hazakim, Mike and Tony. I don't know which one of them posted, but they good. They good dudes. They good dudes. Good Christians. Good messianics. But they posted a clip of Glenn Loury talking to Tucker Carlson. That Tucker Carlson makes you do that rock eyebrow right there. Cause that dude, I'm just gonna be honest with you, he's a clown. Tucker Carlson is a clown. But the post reads like this: all of my woke church, and I want y'all to catch this part because I'm gonna explain my issues here in a second. I'm pretty sure Chris will voice his opinion as well. All of my woke church, defund the police, whiteness is the problem, CRT and BLM friends or friends of friends. This just might be the most important clip you watch. The point that starts at 144, the 1 minute 44 second mark, is so obvious. It's worthy of a duh. And I've always wondered why you haven't thought of this. And instead of a generic coon shaming that is typical and intellectually lazy, do me a favor. Either provide a solid logical argument to this brilliant academic, Glenn Loury's argument, or admit that he is correct and stop being self-destructive. So that is what we're here to do. And by God's grace, we will do it. Go ahead, my brother.
Time will never end. The careless rhetoric of American politicians to the heart and mind. Ignorance is blind. There's no comfort in the truth. Pain is all you find. That's what George Michael once sang. Mm-hmm. And I edited the words a little bit to fit our little narrative here. But yeah, I mean, man, this is like typical. This is typical. What? Okay, let me take a step back. Okay, so what got me interested in this clip is because it was posted by some brothers in the Lord, and to me, I don't know if Loury himself considers himself a Christian. I don't know if Tucker Carlson considers himself a Christian, but I find it very telling and problematic that many Christians hitch their cart to political platforms here in America. And I just find that immensely problematic in light of the biblical meta narrative, particularly the notion, the New Testament notion that Jesus is king with a kingdom, and that we Christians are his citizens. And in light of this, very prevalent meta narrative of the New Testament, this is like the Christian, politics should be advocating for Jesus to be the king of the world, of everybody, because Jesus is the righteous king. He's the righteous judge. His scepter, his kingdom is that of the scepter of righteousness. What's that? Hebrews chapter 1, right? Matthew chapter 11. So yeah, I think that when people don't understand the biblical meta narrative of Jesus as king and its broader implications of hope on earth rests on us embracing Jesus as king and all that accompanies that, then we'll hitch our carts to political platforms that ironically are hypocritical. Some of the stuff that Loury said was comical to me, because I'm like, dude, like, do you think about this? Take a step back, take a breath, and think about it. Just think about history. Like, this is Freestyle Friday. I've done all of zero research for this live here. I'm basically just gonna Columbo this guy, gonna ask some pertinent questions and let the logic do the work. It's not that hard, people. Jesus is our king. Salvation and hope rest in no other name under heaven other than Jesus. This hope is not simply a platonic hope that is a hope after we die to live again, but it's a hope that impacts the world right here, right now, through people in the kingdom. That's you and me, brothers in the Lord, living out God's righteous decrees, loving our neighbor as ourselves, having compassion, feeding people, clothing people, speaking out against injustices. So yeah, to me, I'm excited to kind of get. I was telling Matthew before we started, I said, I doubt we're going to get further than 3 minutes into this video, 3.5 minutes, because some of the stuff that they say is so absurd. It's like, are you serious? So anyway, that's kind of my ranting preface for this Freestyle Friday live. And here we go.
And we was asked not to coon shame. I cannot promise that I will not shame, but I will be nice and not say the C word. But if the implications do follow from it, we just got to deal with it. But we're gonna give an argument. We're gonna give an argument with zero research.
If it does not fit, you must acquit.
If it don't fly, if it don't apply, let it fly. All right, let's play these clips. And here we go. We're going to start at the 3 minute and 43 second mark. Just want to say, here we go. And I'm going to make it bigger. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3.
Well, in the months that ensued after the death of George Floyd, I did recognize that I thought something really significant in our culture was taking place. I mean, I thought the country had lost its mind, to be quite honest with you. Like I say, or maybe I haven't said it here, I'll say it now. There are a handful of cases like George Floyd. The main reality on the streets of American cities, insofar as racial, risk and so forth, is violent crime. That is the thing that has to be confronted. The embrace of this open season on Black people, I think that's what Benjamin Crump calls it, open season. The embrace of this framing of the problem, which distracts us from the objective threat to the integrity of the Black body, is just a profound mistake. And to find not only African Americans embracing it, but to find the country buying it, struck me as deeply problematic, deeply concerning. So, I mean, it started with me reacting against people who are saying, oh, don't mind the looting. It's mostly peaceful protests. Don't mind the looting and rioting. People are just collecting their reparation. Don't mind the looting and rioting. After all, they have a reason to be angry. We should understand. And I thought a couple of things. I thought, first of all, objectively, that's wrong. Our civilization rests upon exactly the opposite of what you said. And I thought, secondarily, do you think that the quiet, silent majority of this country are going to take it forever if you talk like that and act like that?
That's exactly right.
Actually, they're not going to take it forever.
All right.
Okay. Here's the first, hypocritical point that I think that he made. He said, okay, actually back it up like 30 seconds and let me let him say it again so I can kind of point it out. There you go.
I mean, it started with me reacting against people who were saying, oh, don't mind the looting. It's mostly peaceful protests. Don't mind the looting and rioting. People are just collecting their reparation. Don't mind the looting and rioting. After all, they have a reason to be angry. We should understand. And I thought a couple of things. I thought, first of all, objectively, that's wrong. Our civilization rests upon exactly the opposite of what you said. And I thought,
all right. So his first point was objectively, that's wrong. Our civilization rests upon the exact opposite of that. And I just thought to myself about our civilization, his comment, not mine, our civilization. So let me do a quick reminder to people. This is our civilization, American civilization, not mine. I'm a member of the kingdom of God. Not that I'm anti-American. I just identify as a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God. So anyway, he said our civilization is built on the exact opposite of that. In what way? Was not America established in a revolutionary war? It did it not start with a Boston Tea Party protest? Like, this is the way. Americans are fiercely protective of their freedom. Their freedom of speech and freedom to form in public. These are two of the earliest amendments to the Constitution, right? Right? Am I missing something here? And the right to own a gun, right?
Don't tread on me.
Right. They're the very sentiment of American culture rests upon these freedoms to be able to say what you want to say and to be able to go in public and when things aren't going the way you want, for you to be able to protest. And the very founding fathers of this country did the very same thing. Now, unless he thinks that those people should have acquiesced to Great Britain and not protest and just took it on the chin when they felt like something was wrong. And what I'm not saying, please don't read anything. Please don't believe I'm saying anything that I do not actually say. So don't assume that I believe anything about anything. If you have a question for me regarding anything that this video is covering, both the Loury and Carlson, or anything that I say that you may not be clear of, you can always ask in the comments. I do a pretty decent job of monitoring the comments on these lives that I do and responding to that. Or you can just email me at apologist@detroit.com, ask directly, and you'll get that answer that you're looking for. But that said, again, the very founding of this country was through protests, through violent protests, through throwing the king's tea into the harbor. And the irony is, like, them dudes, they didn't want to own it. They dressed up like Native Americans. They didn't even want to own the fact that they were protesting. They hid their identity and tried to blame it on others, right? Instead of just standing up and owning it. And then again, these early amendments being this right to form in public, these right to speak, and these right to own guns. This country civilization is not founded on accomplishing things through peaceful protests. So again, I am not advocating the violent protests. I think it's wrong. But I think it's hypocritical of him to say that it's wrong when he's espousing America's civilization as the standard, and the very standard that which he's arguing from did the very same things themselves. That's hypocritical, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. That's the first point. Again, we're gonna struggle to make it through 5 minutes of this video, y'all.
Let me borrow a line from Pastor Brandon Washington and just add my 2 cents. Well, one, he talks about the framing of open season and things like that. And you know what? I get it. But I don't think that he's a part of the GOP. I think he's a neoliberal. And like I said, we kind of talk of politics. Now, me and Chris Bryant Samuel are dealing with politics from a King Jesus perspective, because Jesus being a king is political. So that's what we're doing. But the framing of open season, no, the issue is starting these type of actions from and I'm a former police officer, so not all police are bad, things like that. But these type of actions are starting to be filmed. We're catching it on camera. It's been going on, and a lot of times there are internal affairs reports that are that are filed, but it's starting to be filmed. And I'm not going to say so much that it's open season or whatever, but the issue is this: when you can have a person like Derek Chauvin only get pretty much the minimum, and then if a black person was to kill a cop, they would get the maximum, we have a problem. As a Christian leader, my Bible tells me that not many of us should become teachers, because what does it say? We would get the worst of judgment. So on biblical principle alone, those who are in leadership should be held to a higher standard. The problem is this: when a police officer does something wrong, justice is not swift, justice is not consistent, and it's very lenient. But if when black people kill other black people, there's a reasonable expectation that somebody's going to go to jail. Now, when you hear the outcry of this, when a police officer, or a white police officer at that, kills a black person, all eyes are watching to see if justice is as consistent as it is when a black person kill another black person, or at worst, when a black person kill a cop. If that, if that happens as consistently, so that that's the issue. So yeah, we can keep going, because otherwise we ain't gonna get through this thing. Go ahead, brother.
We ain't gonna get through it. But anyway, I intentionally brought up the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party incident, as well as the Revolutionary War, because I know that the First Amendment says that you can form peacefully in public. So I intentionally brought up those two actions because I'm telling you they're hypocritical, because they didn't do that themselves. They protested violently. They damaged stuff that belonged to the government. They damaged stuff publicly. So I'm bringing up the hypocrisy of it. Again, I don't condone it. I don't live by those ethics. I live by the ethics of the kingdom of God. I'm simply pointing out the hypocrisy of those who embrace American political rhetoric, and they don't even recognize that they're sawing off the branch that they are sitting on. They're not even living by their own standard. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy. I'm not advocating for people to be able to meet and violently destroy people's properties or anything like that. That's not what I'm here for. Again, do not read anything into what I do not say. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it in the comments here on this video, or email me at Apologist in Detroit, and I'll ask your question so that you can actually have a conversation if you want to have a conversation, and not straw man things that I say. Thank you. To the heart and mind.
All right, let's keep going. And you could just tell me when to stop, Chris.
Secondarily, Do you think that the quiet, silent majority of this country are going to take it forever if you talk like that and act like that?
That's exactly right.
Actually, they're not going to take it forever. And heaven
thing.
forbid the world we live in when they start acting on their rejection of what it is that you just said.
Can you? You're onto something right there, in my view. I've thought this from the beginning. I haven't fully articulated or thought it through. Can you keep going in that? What are you talking about specifically? Because I think every action has a reaction, but it's physics.
Here's what I'm talking about. How many times can you?
It's about to get good, y'all.
All right. What did Tucker just say? What did he say? Every action has a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Again, hypocrisy, irony. How many of us been living in this country for any extended period of time? How long have these type of protests actually been going on? How long, right? Since the civil rights movement, these type of protests have been slowly on the decline because things have been slowly progressing and getting slightly better. The problem is when you look into the statistics, and we're not going to be talking about that today, and I know that you have to exegete the statistics. You have to do some exposition. You can't just state a stat in within a frame of a narrative and assume that stat is true. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not establishing the validity of these stats. I'm simply pointing out that the stats today, there's never been equality in the stats. And there's been a reason historically that we all know and agree on that there was no equality in the stats. It's because of racism. Because we know they were denying jobs. We know they were denying education. The very thing that everybody knows that you need in order for you to get that better job. We were denied equality in loans to buy houses and to build equity, build generational wealth within our families. We know this. There's countless stories. So we know this up into civil rights that was the norm. And so now that the statistics haven't gotten any better, and in some cases, other statistics have suspiciously, ironically gotten worse, like the rate at which Black people go to jail, the rate at which the income that we make. There's a lot of things, disparities that impact African-American people that today these people who are protesting are arguing that this is the reaction. Tucker said, every action has a reaction. Mm-hmm. And these people are reacting to the fact that while things have socially progressed some, you don't see as many dominant culture people standing over there looking across the street calling people the N-word. You don't see nearly as much racism in permission and allowing us to get education, go into whatever school we want to go to, and things like that. You don't see as much of it. But the two things, there's a legacy. There's the handicap legacy. In other words, 1964 is when that law changed 50 years ago. Back then, the Assistant Secretary of Labor, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, told y'all. He said nothing has impacted the Negro family more than three centuries of racism and oppression, and that it's not going to undo itself on its own. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the Moynihan Report. That's a Republican doing the Republican administration of Richard Nixon, right? Anyway, so these people who are protesting today, again, I'm not agreeing with them protesting. I don't have an official opinion. You know why I don't have an official opinion? Because I haven't looked into it. I haven't educated myself and informed myself so that my opinion will be dignified. So I'm not going to speak out of ignorance. I'm not going to speak narratively with whatever my group say. I'm just speaking to these things in their most general sense. But in the most general sense, the people who are protesting are the reaction to the actions of the 300 years of racism that their ancestors faced, and then the subsequent 50 years of slow progression to where it's less and less impactful. Remember, Martin Luther King was killed 4 years after the bill was passed for civil rights because he was still marching because equality had not yet been attained, and the legacy of all of the legacy of the impact of it had left a huge deficiency in African Americans' quality of life. So Martin Luther King still marching. So it didn't just end there. You still got school integration in the 70s. So yeah, it's like, hey, it took a while for it to progress to the point to where we're at today. Where it is relatively free and it is relatively equality, but people's qualities of life is much different because of the legacy of the damages that were done for the 300 years and some of the subsequent 50 years as slowly progress was made. So Tucker Carlson smirkingly laughing, talking about, yeah, it's every action has an equal reaction. Yes, this protesting that people are doing in their minds for the reasons of their own is the reaction to what was done to them. And we know and all would agree that some stuff was done to them. The question is, when did it end and how much does it impact the status of people's lives today? So I felt like Tucker Carlson is blinded by his political narrative, because in his mind, he thinks, yeah, we're going to be the righteous people that react when these people overdo it. And it's like, dude, that's what they're doing. You're a hypocrite. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
Okay. It's about to get good because my favorite part is coming up. All right.
You remind the white majority.
Let me just rewind it, maybe about 10 seconds. All right.
Or thought it through. Can you keep going on that? What are you talking about specifically? Because I think every action has a reaction, but it's physical.
Here's what I'm talking about. How many times can you remind the white majority of this country that their numbers are shrinking and they're about to be dominated by a coming non-white coalition of Latino and Black and whatnot? How many times can you tell them that they are intrinsically racist, that their lives are built upon an unearned privilege? How many times can you accuse them of failing to see your humanity when in fact you're living in the freest country and you are the richest people of African descent ever to have walked on the planet?
We hadn't got to my part, but as you can see, it's heating up.
It's so ridiculous. The stuff that the presuppositions that these people have is delusional. It's like really delusional. It's like you literally have to ignore all of history in order for you to be able to say the things that they're saying. Okay, first of all, what do you say? How many times can you tell them that they are intrinsically racist? Again, irony. Because you know what? One of the political rhetorical responses is every time a Black person talks about systemic injustice, they're like, yes, CRT. That's CRT. And then they start spouting off names. Oh, Robin DiAngelo and Ibrahim Kendi. And now you got Ibrahim Kendi telling you, I'm not a CRTist. I haven't even read on CRT. I'm a historian. I'm simply speaking from history, and I'm telling you what history says. Now, whether or not Ibrahim Kendi is right or wrong about history, that you can debate that on your own. That's not the point. The point is this whole business of throwing everything into the CRT bucket when the very people that they're accusing of being the face of CRT today, of public discourse on CRT, the very people that they're accusing to be the face of it are saying, I'm not a CRT person. CRT was created in 1981. I was born in 1982. CRT, which was a blog or something that Ibrahim Kendi put out today. That's an excerpt from a blog that Ibrahim Kendi put out today because of so many people calling him a CRTist.
The godfather of CRT.
Right. And then this whole business of intrinsically racist. It's like, you know what they often hear a retort of people who after they straw man them with the CRT business, then they go, you're the racist. So here it is. One side saying you guys are carrying the history of racism in your culture. The other side saying, oh, you're the racist because you're accusing us. And so why is it so hard for you to believe that racism is not pervasive when you are accusing the other people of being racist and they're accusing you of being racist? It's like, why is it so hard to see, to understand, or to consider, not to see, understand? Why is it so hard to even consider? Because what they're doing is they're shutting down the consideration of it with the red herring straw man of CRT. They shut it down. They say, oh, that's CRT, broken system, CRT, racism, you're racist. That's what they do, right? And so, yeah, to me, it's like he said, how many times can you tell them they are intrinsically racist? And to me, it's like the irony of it all is their very actions in response to the accusation of being racist is to themselves talk about themselves make the accusation of racism, thus affirming even though they don't realize it, the position of these opponents of theirs, of the intrinsic racism that exists in our society. Then and that their lives are built upon this unearned privilege. That was the next line that he says. And to me, it's like, okay, if you know the history, if you know the fact that during the 20th century, when America was trying to create patriotism in its citizens and was giving out housing loans so that they can people can buy houses, because prior to that you had to be super rich to buy a house, and so the federal government funded the building of these houses, loans for the builders to build the houses, and then they backed the loan so that the citizens could buy the house, and they denied Black people they denied Black people the ability to participate in that process. So where everybody else's descendants were coming over here, migrating over here, starting their own businesses, earning money, and building lives for themselves, while all of these things were transpiring for all these other immigrants and people who weren't over here, whose ancestors weren't over here and didn't participate in it, they were still systematically denying African Americans, Native Americans, and Latinos from participating in this. They were systematically icing out whole groups of people, and in such, this is when they say it's unearned. They're not implying that you didn't get your butt up and go to work and earn a paycheck. What they're saying is you advance further than others, not solely on the grounds that you actually got up and went out and worked, but on the ground that other people weren't permitted to participate. The other people were locked out and limited in their capacity to accomplish the same things. So when you compare yourselves to others, you did accomplish some of what you accomplished because of a privilege that other people were denied. So to me, again, hypocrisy.
I call it white socialism, and that's my term.
see now you step now there you go, man. There you go.
I'm just saying, look. You giving. I mean, Martin Luther King said it best. You gave away property.
Yep.
You gave away property. You pay farmers not to farm sometimes, and then a Black farmer can't even, get anything. But socialism exists. It just exists for certain folks.
I've seen several. Like I love. Like I am who I am today in part because of Greg Kokel and Stand to Reason. You know what I'm saying? That ministry played a profound role in developing my intellect, my ability to think more critically and assess information. Just the same, but just recently they wrote a blog,
Oh Lord!
And in the blog they're quoting Martin Luther King, and it's like, dude, have you ever read Martin Luther King? Because Martin Luther King wouldn't agree with you. Like, why is you quoting Martin Luther King? Why is you quoting? He quoted Martin Luther King, and he quoted Frederick Douglass. I'm like, neither one of them would agree with you. Read their seminal blogs. Read the letter from a Birmingham jail. Read What to the African American is the 4th of July. Just their blogs make it clear that these aren't people that you can. But you know what they do? They eisegete. They take an excerpt about people being considered by the quality of their character, which is true. You should consider a person by the quality of their character, but can you really measure the quality of a person's character when that person has been deprived their very humanity? When a person is forced, like I often think of this scene from the movie Life, where Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy are in jail, and they get kind of their little beef between them, and so like they go this long period of time where they not talking. And then Martin Lawrence, this character, decides that he wants to have some pie. And so the woman in the kitchen, she cooks the pie, she sits it out on the ledge so it to cool off. And Martin Lawrence runs over, grabs the pie, and he starts eating the pie because it's hot. And the next thing he got to stand on these bottles. And I'm like, well, if he wasn't unjustly put in jail, he would have never stole that pie. I mean, look at the dignity and character that Martin's character in that movie had when he got in. He was in banking. He had a legitimate job. He was about to settle down and get married to this woman that he had been courting, and he got wrapped up in Eddie Murphy's character shenanigans. He got wrapped up in that and ended up in jail indirectly because of a crooked cop. Right? That's how he ends up in jail. So it's like, can you blame him?
And we still got crooked cops, by the way.
Of course, we always will.
They plant guns on. They plant toy guns on people too.
Read John the Baptist. Comments on how the police should behave. That's how bad the policing problem was even back then. Where he's telling them, hey, when you become a Christian, no longer take bribes and no longer bear false witness. Be content with your pay. He's critiquing policing way back then in the first century when Jesus come on the scene for Christians. This is how the Christian and policing should work. Anyway, that's not the point though. But the point was, like, there's tons of work that's being done right now, and it has been done, that shows the correlation between poverty and criminality. Is you don't really get rich people committing the same type of crimes that we complained about. Who steals your hubcaps? Who breaks into your house and steals your TV? It's poor people. It's not the person who got that nice middle class job. Where do all the poor people come from? That's the question. And that's a part of the equation of understanding how certain groups that have been deprived of equality for hundreds of years, that's a part of the equation of how they got where they are at today and why they make some of the decisions. Some people only want to look at the decisions that they make and not consider the context of which those decisions were made. Same thing with violent crimes when you look at cities like Chicago. So yeah, so to me, I find it ironic, the hypocrisy that these guys have when they paint this romantic picture of American life as if it's always been equality for everybody and that anybody can accomplish this, and these people have no excuse. And it's like, no. This is a scrambled up egg that we can't unscramble. We got to cook it, make an omelet, make some scrambled eggs. We got to do something with it. We can't unscramble it, but we got to find a solution that is just. And these guys talk like justice is only everybody just getting on a program and acting and forgetting the past. That's not justice. Certainly not justice. It's biblical justice. So yeah, and as Christians, we should care about biblical. We should care about justice biblically. We should care about justice the way that God sees justice, not the way our society sees justice, where they can oppress and disenfranchise people for generations and then not want to wash their hands of the consequences and say that was our ancestors. Again, civil rights is 50 years ago. Integration was in the 70s. That's 40 years ago. It's not, all of these things are not all that long, and that's why we're living with the ramifications of these, because people like to think of racism as ancient history and talk about it solely in the context of slavery, when racism was so much more than slavery. And its impact is still being felt today, because it wasn't all that long ago when racism was the old type of racism was the norm. So yeah, and then one more thing he said, how many times can you accuse them of failing to see your humanity? And again, we're Christians, right? That's what we're supposed to be, the image bearers. We're supposed to be the people commissioned by God to restore the image in people, and to restoring the image in people is equality, is treating them with dignity and equality. And I don't know anyone, I don't know a whole lot of people who know American history very well. One. Secondly, I don't know a whole lot of people who even look at census stats and other statistics that come out that show the massive amount of disparities that impact minorities in this country. So to me, it's like, again, we have to do, like, we can do that in another video. That's not what we're here to do, to ground the reasons for the disparities. We're not here to do that today. We do that on other videos. But the reality is the disparities have always existed. There was never a time when there was equality. It was obvious why the disparities existed in history. And now the question is, why do the disparities exist today? That's the question. And they're arguing, and I would agree with them on this point, that it exists because of the prevalence of racism in American society. The fact that racism, like as it always has morphed into something new. It used to be, hey, you can own a person, chattel slavery, beat them, sell them, do whatever you want to do to them, rape them. Then it morphed into oh, you can oppress them and no one's going to care. You can steal their property. You can lie on them and say that they stole your property. You can go and kill them and say that you did it for a just cause, and the police who didn't care about justice. So to me, it's like, hey, this is the legacy of America, not the kingdom of God. America. So I don't think that these guys have any grounds to stand on as if they, in righteous indignation, as if they aren't guilty of the very same things. Such irony. The hypocrisy is so ironic because they're guilty of the very same things that they're accusing these other people of being blind to, not seeing, or not accepting of. Yep. Woo.
All right, I'm gonna keep going.
Sorry, I know I'm dominating this.
No. It's all right. It's okay because
I got something else to say when he starts talking about this whole.
He about to get into
the last thing he just said. Is that what you about to talk about when he was talking about medicine and what Western have Europeans have given to the world?
What I'm going to say is going to sound like a personal attack on Glenn, but see, I have a problem with Dr. Loury. I do. Because he will entertain certain foolishness, but he's about to let the cat out of the bag. Also, I got this book right here, Where Do We Go From Here, by Dr. Martin Luther King. If I was to read just some of the quotes in this book, you'd swear up and down that Dr. King was a critical race theorist, but that's neither here nor there. That's for another program, but let's keep going with this.
We're going to be stopping real quick because...
How many times can you do that?
Go ahead, sir.
I said we're gonna be stopping real quick because when this next thing, that's what I said, we're gonna be rough getting.
Oh yeah.
3-4 minutes of this video because it was so bad.
This is All
right, go ahead.
And not have them get the idea that they've got an identity too. That's a racial identity, and it's not yours. That's not the world you want to live in. You don't want to be told, in response to your iconoclasm, we're going to tear down all the statues. We don't like Mount Rushmore. We think the founding fathers are full of shit. You don't want to be told by those people, I tell you what, where's your civilization? You don't want that. You don't want to be reminded that modern medicine rests upon a European intellectual foundation.
Write it down, Chris.
You don't want to be told that the institutions that secure our liberty and allow for our prosperity came out of Europe.
All right, there we go.
So if you insist on playing the race card,
stop. Seriously, I laugh because I would cry otherwise. That's the truth. I laugh because otherwise I'd be crying. But, man, he said so much. Rewind it 30 seconds again because, he said so much. He talked about iconoclasm. He talked about
Christians.
They have a racial identity. He talked about iconoclasm, and then he talked about these great benefits and this great benefits that the whites have given us, and then he implied what the standard was. Oh my goodness.
I just want y'all to know that Christians are posting this and say, don't coon shame him, but either post a sound argument against it or admit that he's right. Christians are saying this as if you can't refute this. Okay, let me go back real quick.
Yeah, let's go back.
It rests upon a European intellectual foundation. You don't want to be told that the institutions that secure our liberty and allow for our prosperity came out of Europe. Okay? So if you insist on playing the race card, you better watch out.
Okay,
because that's a game you can't win. If people.
So first he said, you better be worried because if they got their racial identity also. And to me, that even though I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I'm confident that he wasn't implying that they should be racist. But effectively, that's what he said. They're gonna be racist too, which would be no surprise. Long history of it. And the point, my point being this: where is the cries and calls for unity? You know, rather than crying and calling for unity, you know, he's saying, oh, they're gonna be racist too. You know, the very thing that you're saying is wrong about them. You know, and what's the old saying? Two wrongs don't make a right. I just felt like that was, and even though he's probably just appealing to this logical, deductive, way that human beings behave. Again, as I mentioned earlier, when Tucker said every action has a reaction, what they're seeing today is the reaction to the historical actions, and the historical actions again are not hundreds of years ago slavery, and not simply it's the 20 to 30 years and then back, because again, just because civil rights law was passed in 1964 don't mean that things changed. King was still marching when he was killed. He was still marching because it still didn't solve the problem. There was still inequality. There was still inequality in education, the foundational things that give people the opportunity to advance in life. There was still inequality, along with all of the legacy of the years of oppression that those people had faced. My previous generation, the generation is generally considered 40 years as a generation. So to me, it's like we're just at the second generation post a explicitly racist America. We're at the beginning of the second generation of a post racist generation. And so there's if you know people that's 70, those people were literally adults when they were lynching folks in the South, when they were burning crosses, when King was marching and people were singing "We Shall Overcome," when they were burning churches and killing little girls in Birmingham, Alabama. When that was happening, if you know somebody that's 70, they lived during that. When they were setting buses on fire, when they were using fire hoses and dogs to break up protests, black and white water fountains back of the bus. If you know someone that's 70, probably your grandmother and your grandpa, they lived. They were literally adults when all of these things were transpiring, young adults, 15 to 20 years old when all of these things are transpiring. It's not racism, harsh racism. It's not all that long ago. It's just not. So yeah, when he appeals to this whole race, this whole hey, white people are gonna react with their own racism, to me, that's just as bad. Two wrongs don't make a right. That's just as bad as what you're critiquing. And again, I don't agree with the people that they're critiquing with. I'm simply pointing out the hypocrisy and how these people can't even see it. They can't even see the hypocrisy. So then he mentioned hey, oh, look at all of the great, wonderful things that white people gave us. And I am being a little sarcastic, so please don't. Again, I'd be crying. I laugh so I don't cry. I'm being a little sarcastic when he's saying, look at all the great things that white people gave us. They gave us modern medicine. Well, what was happening while these people were giving us modern medicine? The transatlantic slave trade. Maybe there's a reason that Black people didn't predominantly participate in this intellectual enterprise. Maybe those people don't deserve credit. Maybe they don't just simply deserve credit, but they also deserve critique and criticism because not in light of their advancements. By the way, a lot of those advances were made by doing experiments on slaves and free people even after slavery. Read the book Medical Apartheid, where you hear of countless stories of how various fields of medicine was developed here in the West, in America, and in Europe through experimentation on slaves and African people who were brought over from the African slave trade after slavery. So yeah, it's like, how is it that you can see the romantic side of the good that they gave in the medical advancement and not see the cost at which that came? And you want to praise them for giving that to them when we didn't even have an opportunity to participate. We were denied. That's why they did that without us, because we were denied. And then the last thing he said, I can't recall what the exact words were. I was trying to write down a bunch of the quotes so I get the wording exactly right. But he basically made white intellectualism the standard. Like, hey, this is the greatest education in the world. I mean, no, you know what he said, what I'm thinking of? He was talking about, hey, African Americans here on American soil are the freest and wealthiest of anywhere in the history of the world. And it's like,
sound like Bodie.
How does he know that? hey, what could, like whites had the ability to make those medical advancements because they was free? How do you know what African Americans would have done? Not African Americans, what Africans would have done if you left them alone on their continent? If you left them all of their countries, all of their people groups, instead of exporting them as a commodity and then colonizing their continent, how about if we just left them alone? Who knows what advancements they would have made? Who knows what liberties would have accomplished through just letting them be and develop as their own society like you guys had? You know, why are you romanticizing these people who accomplished a lot of what they accomplished at the expense of other human beings? How can you not see that? And this is a part of the reason that they don't get the narrative. You know, you want to look at the good, you want to acknowledge the good that was accomplished, but you don't want to acknowledge the context in which that good was accomplished. You don't want to recognize that maybe the reason that blacks didn't participate was because we weren't permitted to. We were being sold as property. We were being colonized and taken advantage of. You know, so yeah, again, the irony of the hypocrisy of Loury and Tucker and these statements that they're making, it just is sad, but it's typical of Americans. It should not be typical of us Christians. We Christians serve the King of righteousness. We Christians serve the King who will pay your ransom and save you. That's who we serve. We serve the King. There's never going to be slavery in the kingdom of God. There's never going to be oppression in the kingdom of God. Go read Psalm 146. You know, there's never going to be exploitation in the kingdom of God. Equality and justice shall reign. Equality does not mean us all having the same exact thing. It doesn't mean us all having the same exact opportunity. And that's never been the case with any country throughout the history of the world. All countries throughout all history stands juxtaposed to the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Yahweh, the kingdom of Jesus. And we Christians have to stop buying into these American political narratives of righteousness that are not righteous at all. They're built upon the very same sins that they're criticizing these other people of, and worse, because they did it. These people are advocating for a skewed version of justice, those opponents. And you guys are trying to justify American history. And it's like, why? If you are a Christian, your political worldview should be Jesus is king. Your political worldview should be, what does the Bible tell me about righteousness and justice? What does the Bible tell me about those things? And then I should take those things, put them into practice, and tell others to come and join us and practice them along with us. And maybe people, when we begin to do that, people will see salvation and hope in Jesus instead of America. Because right now, what I see in politics is just a bunch of people preaching the good news of America. America brought us this great medical health care. It brought this great wealth and prosperity. I mean, go look at the census statistics. The vast majority of Americans are not as rich as you like to think. They not. They in a lot of debt. They're carrying a lot of debt and living from paycheck to paycheck and living below the cost of living because of our wonderful fiat cash system, value system that we got here, where every day, whatever money you earn and have basically depreciate. Anyway, I'm gonna stop ranting because we ain't got much longer. And Matthew, you ain't barely said nothing.
No, it's
about another 20 minutes before we got to get ready for the bodega.
It's all right, but he's saying that black people are some of the most rich people or the wealthiest people. I mean, can you say that to the folks in Flint, Michigan, who had the water issue? Can you go to the inner? Can you go to Detroit and say that to the people? Can you go to Philly? Can you go to Fort Worth, Texas? Can you go to Dallas, Texas, and go to the projects and say y'all wealthy? Like, dude, just because you doing good, and it is really ironic that they always find a few blacks, and I'm not coon shaming, I'm stating the fact. They find a few blacks that say what they want to hear, and I'm just saying, for the GOP, the line is shorter. The to get to the front of the line, it's a short line to get to the front, and you can make you some money. But I mean, how can you say that with a straight face? I'm serious. I hear stories like I help people find jobs and things like that, and the despair that some of them have to overcome. If God does not help them, Black people have done good in spite of many of the obstacles because of the miracle working power of God to sustain Black people. Now, a miracle happens when God decides to intervene. But just because God intervenes, that does not negate that justice should be happening, that people should be doing right, that people should be treating people in a fair and impartial manner. Like, come on, don't confuse the two. But this brother, this brother says, "Where's your civilization?" And so he's assuming that Black history starts with slavery. Glenn, Dr. Larry, they tell me that you're a smart dude. You better than that, but I believe that you're tap dancing right now. You playing that funky music for the white boy. So let me keep going.
People insist on discussing violent crime in this country in terms of white police officers attacking Black citizens. How long will it be before somebody actually does the exercise that Charles Murray pursues in this recent book of his, this forthcoming book, and does the counting of who's actually committing the crimes against whom in this country? I don't want to hear about Black thugs raping white women, but I'm going to hear about it soon enough if you keep telling me about white cops killing Black kids. It's not a racial thing, it's a human thing. Bad cops need to be dealt with, and thugs need to be dealt with, regardless of their
Tucker Carlson laugh at that.
Because here's the thing. Let me tell y'all who Charles Murray is. Charles Murray is the pseudo pretend social scientist, a race scientist. Okay, you got another dude named Stephen Molyneux. These dudes are race scientists. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with a book called The Bell Curve. It was written quite a few years back. But there's a book called The Bell Curve, and it talks about how basically these racial disparities that we're talking about, and maybe even racism itself is not it's not based off of bad laws or racist policies, but based on IQ and performance. And so what Charles Murray attempts to argue in some of his book, and Glenn has had him on his platform, and Glenn has entertained certain things that Charles Murray has. So has Coleman Hughes, Sam Harris, who is an atheist, a left-leaning atheist. Let me just tell you folks real quick. One, Black people don't have any friends on the left or the right. Okay? You got just as many racists on the left as you do on the right. You have, just as many tap dancers, and I'm not going to say the coon word. I'm going to say tap dancers. You have buck dancers. You have just as many buck dancers on the left as you do on the right. And Glenn has entertained Charles Murray's thoughts and findings and things like that. Let me tell you, people have shredded up and wrote peer-reviewed refutations of Charles Murray, because how do you measure intelligence? Do you have a person construct the IQ test in 1904 based off of their assumptions and presuppositions, and then you say, okay, this is how we objectively measure who's smartest? while ignoring the fact that people learn differently, also that home environment and societal factors play a role, perhaps curriculum that they're studying. It's a reason why we learn about nothing but white people in the curriculum. If we started trashing some of our American founding fathers, some folks probably would start to develop low self-esteem. It's a reason why Black people do not see themselves in the school curriculum when they study, and how basically we have to amend our curriculum for our children to let to build them up. Because if you're sitting there studying about the accomplishments of these other folks, what does that do for you on a mental level? These things have been studied, and like I said, Charles Murray's work has been shredded. What Glenn does to get past this is he advocates for a colorblind society where we just talk about our humanity. But here's the thing. If I have to ignore the fact that I'm Black just to get white people to treat me right, there is something really sick about that. There is something really ill about that. One, it's not Christian, because God made us the way that we are. And because I am an African American, and I have been created in image, I will thank God for that. And I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And so I disagree with the approach of Dr. Loury, because he capitulates to white supremacy. And it's really sick. You got anything, Chris?
Yeah, we got to wind this down, because we got the next bodega starting in like 40 minutes, and I'd like to get a little bit of a break in between it. And I knew wasn't gonna get through the whole video. Like I said at the beginning, I was gonna be surprised if we got through 5 minutes of it, But after watching it, I was as to quote Loki, I was burdened with glorious purpose. After watching that video, I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Why are so many Christians, promoting the good news of America? Why are they so, why are they so politically aligned? And it's like, read your Bible. Mm-hmm. God is the God of the oppressed, the fatherless, the widow, the foreigner. That's the Bible. That ain't Chris Samuel words. That's the Bible. That's how Yahweh self-identifies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Yahweh critiques his people who he commissioned for. Go read Isaiah. Go read Malachi. Isaiah 1, Malachi 3. That's the beginning and the end. That's going into exile after years of failure. And that's after they got out of exile. Go see why God is critiquing them. Go read the Psalms and the Proverbs and see what God expects from his people, his kings and rulers, and how he self-identifies. That's biblical justice. And that's what Jesus identifies with. Jesus came to set the captives free, y'all. He came that we might have life, and life to the fullest, y'all. These aren't platonic statements. These are literal, practical statements that Jesus made at the pronouncement of his ministry and with the purpose of his ministry. So yeah, I feel like we Christians got to do a better job of understanding the Bible and understanding that our political worldview is not conservative or liberal. Our political worldview is Jesus is king, and the values that are prescribed for all of humanity throughout Scripture are what we should be espousing, promoting, reflecting, and advocating for. And we got to get off these conservative, liberal, American political trains. We got to stop prostituting ourselves to this nation. And we have to start to align ourselves with Jesus. Burdened with glorious purpose.
All right. I got about 5 more minutes. You got 5 minutes, Chris?
Yeah, I got 5. I don't, I'm not going anywhere. I just know we're going to be bodega, so I got to, we got
about 5 more minutes.
The beautiful thing is this was a Freestyle Friday.
Baby.
We can freestyle any day. You know what I'm saying?
We will have more Freestyle Fridays because there's a whole bunch of madness out there.
Yeah. Y'all get the hook of Careless Whispers You know, that's the track that we played for this one here. We sampled some Careless Whispers at the beginning of this. If y'all didn't watch it,
all right.
That's the position I take. But what I fear for my country is that the racialization of these conversations invites a reaction, which we will be reaping the whirlwind should we allow it to come to being.
I've thought that since day one. You don't want to live in a country where the white majority is racially aware or thinks of itself as white before American, but you don't want that. I can't quite articulate as nicely as you just did why, but you don't want to live in that country.
No, we don't.
And I feel like that's such an obvious point that you sort of wonder, a lot of smart people pushing this stuff, very smart people actually. This hasn't occurred to them, or what is this about? It's like they're pushing us toward a wholly racialized America. Why are they doing that?
I don't know the answer. I can think of some reasons why. They're going to be partisan, Tucker. I know you don't have a problem with that. The Democratic Party needs the Black people to vote for them in 85 or 90%, or else they're politically uncompetitive. This is Glenn Loury's analysis. You all can make of it what you will. My mouth is not a prayer book. I could be wrong, but this is what I see, okay? What I see is to keep that solid support from African Americans for the left of the American political spectrum requires pushing before us this narrative about they're going to put y'all back in chains. That was Joseph Biden. About the only reason I ran for president was because he said that there were good people among the white supremacists. Well, he didn't say any such thing. That's, again, Joseph Biden. If I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. That's Barack Obama. To which my response is, no, he wouldn't. Because what he is and looks like is not the color of his skin, it's the character of his life. And if you had a son, you and Michelle, you billionaires, he wouldn't look anything like Trayvon Martin. So why did you say that? Why did Michelle Obama say that she worries that Sasha and Malia might be set upon by a rogue police officer because he sees the back of their head and he looks like somebody who did something wrong? When she knows that that's not true. And the only conclusion that I can come to is that it is a very powerful political tool to keep African Americans aligned when, in fact, the substance of the political conversation offers us very little reason why it is that we should stay aligned. I mean, Donald Trump was many things. He was wrong about many things. But you have nothing to lose. Take a look at your inner cities. He was certainly right about that.
I agree.
Forgive me for thinking Donald Trump was right about anything.
All right. So, yeah, we pretty much got through it. But here's the thing. I got a few thoughts. Do the Democrats need the black vote? Yes, and probably in the future, no. Which is why the GOP attempts to play blacks against Hispanics, or the so-called immigration problem that we have. But this is just me talking. I would just ask people to look at the statistics of how black families do, economically speaking, under either party. I would also ask everybody to look at the abortion rates under either party. Okay, I'm just keeping it real. Typically speaking, when the GOP is running the show, abortion rates go up, and when they're not, abortion rates tend to go down. But facts don't really care about your feelings. But Dr. Loury is assuming that African Americans are not thinking voters, and that just could not be further from the truth. African Americans do think they African Americans do take into account when they cast that ballot. And so I don't know if Dr. Loury is just trying to play to Tucker Carlson's music or whatnot. I'm not sure, but at the same fact, I hear I often hear, well, these major cities are ran by Democrats. Well, I mean, check this out. If you look at all the major cities, pretty much all of them are ran where you have a diversity of people. Pretty much most of the cities over 500,000 people are ran by Democrats, and not all of them have high crime rates. Not all of them. There are some Republican cities that have crime rates, and so Dr. Loury is just as partisan as Tucker. But the truth of the matter is, in 2041, white, I'm sorry to say this, but white people will be the minority, which you see going on with all these voter laws, how they gutted the Civil Rights Bill, either around 2012 or 2013. They gutted those civil rights protections. There's a reason for that. James Madison, he's one of our founding fathers. He pretty much said that the opulent minority must be protected from the majority. So much for democracy, right? So I mean, I just find some of the things that Dr. Loury is saying foolishness. Furthermore, the statements that Barack Obama and some people were saying was, hey, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying, and there's nothing. He might be speaking with a little bit of hyperbole, but there's nothing necessarily factually wrong with what he's saying. He's saying, hey, look, when Trayvon Martin was gunned down by a race soldier, he didn't take the time to look at his character. He didn't say, hey, tell me about your life story. Where you from? No, he made several assumptions. And I recently, a family member had called the cops on my nephew, and I had to have a come to Jesus meeting with his family members. Like, hey, wait a minute. Teenagers do stupid stuff. This is not the time to be doing that. And look, I'm not saying that every cop is a bad cop, but I just simply have to deal with the probability of what's going on. Furthermore, I also have to deal with what my nephew is thinking as well. He might not know how to handle himself in those situations dealing with a police officer yet. So, I mean, I just found Dr. Loury's rhetoric just totally unhelpful, and it really wasn't sound. But what you got? Yeah.
Again, don't read anything to anything that I say. If you're not sure what I'm implying when I speak, ask questions in the comments. I monitor the comments, or you can email me, apologistsindetroit@gmail.com. Okay. My last comment is this, because again, we got to get out of here. He criticized the Obamas for saying, their son would look like Trayvon Martin, and that, and about the whole profiling, their daughters potentially being profiled. And I just so happen to know, I'm like, hey, I listened to the call from the Philando Castillo case in Minnesota, and they literally profiled him. They saw his braids. Apparently someone had robbed a liquor store that had braids, and because this person had braids and that they saw from in the police car, they decided to find a reason to stop this car so that they can apprehend in their minds the guy who robbed the liquor store, which wasn't Philando Castillo. But they profiled him. He ended up dead because of that. So I don't find it troubling that the Obamas, I don't find it unrealistic that the Obamas would fear for their own children that something could potentially happen to their own children, because to me, profiling is a big issue. And that's just one case. There's a lot of research that's being done on profiling right now. I mentioned in a previous commentary video about, I think it's the state of South Carolina, who had the data search for 20 million stops, 20 million stops. And you were like over 100% likely to be searched as a Black person than your white counterparts. You were you were stopped at like 60% when they were like 16% of the population. It's like, it doesn't, like, the disparities are vast. They're all over the place. I recall reading in the new Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. She was citing a case in the city of New Jersey with this bridge where they were where African Americans were like 12% of the population that trafficked on this bridge, and they were this very high, like 60% of the cars that were discretionally stopped. This profiling, this discretionally stopped, and then there's been cases argued that the part of the reason that people are being profiled is because of the fact that people are being profiled. In other words, they profile people, they catch you, you don't have insurance, and then that justifies the next time them profiling a person, because through profiling, they found out, statistically speaking, you're much less likely to have insurance. So they continue to profile, and they continue to wrap people into our broken criminal justice system, which further complicates people's lives and make it even harder for them to get their lives together and straight, because now they're all wrapped up in the system. So yeah, there's a lot of work that's being done on racial profiling, discretionary racial profiling by police, and whether or not it is perpetuating, causing the problem. And the standard that so far that these courts have established as this profiling being racist is you have to prove that it is explicitly racist. In other words, they're stopping the people for the purpose of race and not for the purpose of profiling. But the racial profiling is what built the demographic. It's how they got to that point. So anyway, it's for me. I just felt like this is a difficult, complex issue that we're talking about here, and people often don't understand the nuance of it. And I found Loury's dismissive attitude about the Obama's, comments as being a little sad and disappointing, because everybody seems to have thinks that all these issues are very clear, black and white, pun intended. Everybody thinks that these issues are very simple, and they're not. They're complex. They're often drenched in hundreds of years of history, tons of nuance and aspects that you're not even thinking about when you're just looking at some raw data, or looking at some data that's been narrated to you in a way that makes sense. When we all know that Bible, Proverbs 18 and 19, the first to speak, sounds right until he is cross-examined. We Christians should be the people of wisdom. We should be the people of righteousness. We should be the people who are the people of justice. We should be the people who see things the clearest and actually pursue what is right and what is just on behalf of our King, whose kingdom is codified by these things. So yeah, I'm just again, these are complicated discussions. Commentary videos rarely do justice to the nuance that these discussions are based in. And today, Freestyle Friday, I didn't do any research. All I did was just point out the irony of many of the statements that they were making. The double standard, the absence of perspective, the lack of recognition that they were guilty of these very same things. The people who they are raising up as a standard of righteousness and justice are guilty of the very same things that they're critiquing their opponents of. And the real problem is there's no hope in humanity. There's only hope in Jesus. We got to turn back to the Bible, people. That's what we got to do. We Christians, we people of Scripture, we got to turn back to the Bible. All right, we got to get out of here. Y'all know me. I can rant all day about this stuff.
All right. Well, we will be getting back at y'all again on another Freestyle Friday. But hey, it's been real. This is your boy MJ Jackson checking out, and the Apologist in Detroit. We'll see y'all on the bodega. Y'all take care. Peace.